Now, the next presenter will be Dr. Bambang Budijanto, the General Secretary of Asia Evangelical Alliance, will share the result of presentation from 6 countries, Asia-wide results. Please take your time, sir.
First of all, I would like to thank Bilangan Research Center under the leadership of Pak Andi. I also would like to thank Family First Global for this partnership, working together on this very important issue. I consider this topic and this webinar is very important because, as has been said before, there are so many people suffer because of this abuse, and it was not revealed in public. The pain is even greater when the one that caused the pain was people that should protect you, people that you trust, people that's supposed to love you. Secondly, it is important because this happens among Christians. If this happens outside the Christian family communities, it's sad, but probably understandable. But it happened in the Christian families, that's very sad. And thirdly, as we will see in the findings, less than 30% on average, except the Philippines, of churches in the countries being studied that has a means to help those victims. So it's very sad. And finally, just like the church is the only entity built by Jesus, our Lord, family is the only entity built by God in the Old Testament. And to me, family is not just a smallest social unit. I believe it is the strategy of God to bring his kingdom come. As we can see from the Deuteronomy chapter 6, where the presence of God, the extension, advancement of his kingdom is in the family and through family. I will share with you the findings of this batch 2 of the survey. We did the first webinar a couple months ago. We extended the respondents to cover 6 countries in Asia. And this is the first time you will see the findings. I hope that this will not be the food for our mind, but the data will call us for action. I hope by the end of this webinar, whoever in this room, we will commit to use any influence we have, any role we have to significantly reduce, if not end, this violence in every countries in Asia. I will share the slides, and while I'm sharing the findings, feel free to throw the question on the chat room. So the purpose again of this survey is to measure the occurrence of family conflict and domestic abuse in Christian families. So to see what really happens in our communities. Number 2 is raising church awareness on family conflict and domestic abuse. And thirdly, providing valid and relevant data so churches and Christian institutions can take strategic steps for the prevention and to give the right response to this issue. It's quantitative survey. 6 countries will be 6 countries data will be presented: Indonesia, India, Malaysia, Pakistan, Mongolia, and the Philippines. The survey was done online from December to May. We look at the different gender, age strata. The sample being analyzed is 1,466 out of the 1,816 respondents that came in, with the margin of error 2.6%, meaning if the score is say 30%, then up and down 2.6 is acceptable, considered. On the abuse, we look at 5 different abuses that happened. We will not be able to present the whole data. The data is so rich and a lot, so I just selected few slides to help us understand at least the big picture. There are what we call spiritual abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse is mostly that we aware of, emotional abuse, and financial abuse. We try to make sure it cover all the educational background, the gender, the age, and also the age of marriage, based on the proportion of the population in every country. Let's talk about family conflict first. Before we go to the conflict, since this is already several times of presentation on the earlier version, earlier batch of this survey, so I would like to present the 3 variables aspect that has significant influence on the incidence of domestic violence, abuse, or family conflict. The first one is my spouse and I communicate and share the same vision for our family. So vision for the family is one variable that we look at, and comparing to, of course, difficult to compare because of different culture, but at least if you're from one of these countries, you will see Pakistan, for example, the female, when we look at the green, basically agree with the statement. Only 30% female in Pakistan agree that she and her husband has the same vision for the family. In most cases, the husband or the male has a more positive, so this is just to help the husbands to see this the case, that we often think that me and my wife, we agree on things, but actually it's me and me agree on that. So next, the statement on my spouse and I share the same principle of marriage. We see a huge percentage on male in Philippines, in Mongolia, Malaysia. Again, apart from India, the female are less agreeable to the statement. And again, we look at the Pakistan case where only 35% of female or wife say that we have the same principles on marriage. The third one that we look at as the important variables is, or strategy is, my spouse and I share the same principles on parenting our children. So the first one was vision for the family, second one, principle of the family, and the third one is principle for parenting our children. And we look at, on average, probably only 50% agree that husband and wife agree on the principle of raising children. Very low here in Mongolia, female mother said No, me and my husband, we have different principles on educating our children. The contrast between 22% and 63%. Yeah, the same thing again with the Pakistan data. So those are the three things that we will come back again and again to test the data. Okay. Now the question here is the statement on I fight, not just argue or quarrel, really fight with my spouse at least once in the last 3 years. And you see the data quite high. Yeah, fighting maybe considered normal. 88% in Indonesia, 91 in Mongolia, 83 in Philippines. You can see very lower or lower than any other country is in Pakistan. They have least agreement of the principle of the fission, but least fight as well. So that's must need to dig further whether culture or context that caused this interesting findings. And then the next statement was, I wish to divorce because we tend to have too much disagreement, at least once in the last 3 years. Okay. Thinking of divorce at least once in the last 3 years. We'll see the highest is in Mongolia, 30%. Again, Pakistan, while the most significant disagreement in terms of principle, vision of family, and yet not thinking of divorce because of probably the culture and the context as well. Next, this is about conflict. We have seen in Indonesia, in Philippines, in many other countries where more than 80% at least has one-time conflict. But when we look at we cross-step between the family conflict and the same vision for our family, you can see the big difference. Family, husband and wife, who said that they have the same vision for the family, okay, they solve the conflict very quickly. So yes, conflict, but solve it very quickly. But then for those who don't have the same vision for the family, only 31% solve the conflict, meaning the rest would be left for bitterness for future conflicts. These are some of the general data. That means family income. Yeah. This is asking the statement about divorce, thinking about divorce at least once. Okay, it doesn't matter whether you are rich or poor, the number is not very big different. Okay, 24, 22 is within margin of error, whether you are poor or you are rich, it's the same according to this data. But this is a difference between if your spouse is of different faith, then it's double the possibility or the incidence of wanting to get divorced as compared to if the same faith. And thirdly is the spouse religiosity. It also has some bearing. If your religiosity is low, then the incidence of wanting to divorce higher as compared if your religiosity is high. On domestic abuse, let me just share global for Asia in the last 3 years. Physical, first statement is, my spouse slapped or pushed or shoved, punched or kicked me in the last 3 years, 18%. Emotional is number 1, is repeatedly belittle me to the extent that I felt worthless. 30%. 30% of the families, that means 1/3, 1 out of 3 families in Asia experience abuse emotionally. And then this is financially. 23% excluded me from major financial decision. Spiritual, verbally abuse and mock my belief, my faith. And then sexual, made me to do things sexually that I did not want to do without physical force, 9.2%. Okay. Now, if we look at the gender, cross-tab with the gender, we'll see that a female or wives suffer more than the husband, as probably people has always thought. Okay, in the physical, but it's also true that 15% of the husband was abused by his wife, slap or push or shove, punch, kick. And then on the emotional, it's 26 husband felt abuse, 35% wife felt abuse. Financially, again, 20% of the husband excluded for financial decision, major financial decision, 26%, 1/4 is of the wives. And spiritually, almost double in terms of the victim of abuse. And this is sexually, it's almost it's 4 times the wife suffer more times than the husband. Now let's just look at the physical abuse by country. We don't have the data because it's not valid enough, the data from Malaysia. So we excluded Malaysia on the physical abuse. It doesn't mean that they don't have physical abuse, but it's just the data is not valid enough to be presented. The Indonesia case, we have 6 and 10, 6 husband abuse, 6%, and 10 wives abuse. In India, 26.5% wife, say 1/4 of the wife abused physically. So it's almost same numbers in Pakistan. Bigger number in Mongolia. It's balanced 34-35, but it's 1/3 of the Christian population on average physically being abused and abusing their spouses. And then on emotional is higher than physical abuse in every countries. So we'll see around almost 30%, both husband wife in Indonesia. Same thing in India, a bit higher. In Pakistan, it's not very balanced, only 33%. Not only, but 33.9% husband felt abused emotionally, but almost half of the wives abused emotionally. Mongolia is again the wife abused emotionally more than or half of the wife in Christian homes. Now, doing some cross check again on abuse with family vision. Okay, cross tab again between if you have the family vision, the same family vision, same vision. Yeah, if you share the same vision, then significantly less abuse. Put in all account, physical, emotional, financial, spiritual, and sexual. So we saw earlier, if we share the same vision, husband and wife share the same vision for the family, less conflict. If conflict, mostly 85% will be solved very soon. Now with abuse, significantly less if husband and wife share the same vision for the family. Now let's look at the impact of the COVID. This is the abuse, physical, emotional, and others, whether increasing, worse, or better. Okay, so during the pandemic, 29% say worse on physical, 21% say better. Emotionally, I was suspecting that this is the other way around because people are working at home, maybe it's getting worse emotionally, but actually the data show that it's better, more better than worse. Okay, sexually is more worse than better. Spiritually and emotionally, a good sign, positive sign because of COVID. But the others are getting more worse than better because of COVID. On how has the experience of the abuse changed before and based on the gender now? Okay, the husband said 44% said physically is better, meaning less abuse. Okay, only 13% say worse. But for the wife, 36% say worse because of the pandemic. Only 10% say better. Okay, the same thing emotionally. The husband say 45% better, meaning less abuse from the wife. And the wife said it's more worse than better, meaning more abuse from the husband during the COVID. Same thing financially, same trend with spiritual and with sexual. So we see a different response between husband and wife. So COVID for husband, according to them, COVID has reduced the abuse impacting them as they are the victim. So husbands say things are going better during COVID, but wives say things are getting worse because of COVID on all accounts. Child abuse. So 78%, it's good, but it's not good enough numbers, meaning 22% abusing their children in the last 3 years. 22%, meaning almost 1/4 or 1/5 abuse at least once their children in the last 3 years. And that's tragedy. It's sad because what happened to the children when they were abused, in the future when they become leaders, if they are not healed, then they will become a bad leaders for the community, for the church, wherever they are. Now, in the last 3 years, my spouse physically abused our child, slapped, pushed, shoved, punched, or kicked them. It's high in Mongolia, almost half, 10% in Philippines, 26 India, Pakistan 22, and 2.6 in Malaysia. We need to learn what happened in Malaysia, that only 2.6. If we all can bring the numbers in Mongolia and others to 2.6, that would be a great success. But we need to see 0 actually. Now, the church respond to the domestic abuse. Now, I would like to compare the incidents I wish to divorce with the 3 strategy of variables here. When you look at the share the same vision, you can see the difference. Those who share the same vision less likely, 85% never think about divorce. But here, 34% only never think about divorce. Okay. And then when you share the same principle in marriage, again, 85% never think about divorce, never thought about divorce. Here, 30%, meaning 70%, if you don't share the same principle, you thought of at least once thinking about divorce. If you have the same principle of parenting children, 85% never thought about divorce. 36 thought about divorce at least once. So you can see these three areas: vision, share vision, same principle on marriage, same principle on parenting, significantly make a difference when the resilience of the family. Number two, about abusing children. Okay, the same thing again with the same vision. Okay, if you share the same vision, then you never abuse children, 83%. While if you don't share the same vision, 54%. If you share the same principle in marriage, you don't abuse children, 82%. Never abuse children. When you don't share principle, 55%. If you share the same parenting, 83% never abuse children. When you don't share the same principle in parenting, 60% only never abuse children. Spouse abuse, the same thing, 86% never abuse if you have the same vision, 85% if you have the same principle, 86% if you have the same principle in parenting. Now, church response. Look at the question, and how does the church have service or ministry to respond to domestic conflict or abuse victims? In Indonesia, only 25%, India 22%, Pakistan 23%, Philippines almost 40%, Mongolia 22%, Malaysia 16%. This is what I mentioned at the beginning. Less than 30% on average in every country has a service, a ministry strategy to respond to help the victims of the abuse and family conflicts. This is very sad. So we need to set a target. I hope by the end of this webinar that in every country where the Evangelical Alliance exists, that we will bring this from 25 maybe to 75, or from 22 in Mongolia to 60% at least. My church has taken steps to raise awareness, create awareness to the congregation. 70% say yes in Indonesia, 75% in the Philippines, Malaysia only 38%. The church create awareness of domestic abuse, family conflict. We need to do more. Now, about child abuse, whether the awareness has made a difference in terms of reducing the abuse for children. The answer is yes, but it's not good enough. So those who have no awareness building on domestic abuse, 24% incidents. Those who already has awareness initiative, about 20%. So with 2.6 margin of error, it's not a big difference, but it's different. Awareness make a difference, but effective awareness will hopefully make a bigger difference. The question is, how likely are you to seek help from the church if there's abuse? only probably half say likely or very likely. Very likely only 1/4. Why? Number one is that the church would not have the right expertise to help. So if we can just address this one thing, equip the church to be able to address the issue, then maybe help is closer to the victims. Now the summary or closing statement, closing remarks. Number one, the three strategy, I hope this will become strategy for the church all over Asia, for premarital counseling, for educating parents. One is share vision for husband and wife and children. Number two, share principle on marriage. Number three, share principle on parenting. Reduce incidents of family conflicts and domestic abuse. Clear data. Okay, so this should be Asia-wide strategy in the years to come. Number two, the level of religiosity impact domestic abuse. So if the churches want to measure what is strategic, what is important, then we should measure religiosity or spirituality. I think BRC could provide the tools to do that, and many Asian country alliance already said yes to do measuring the spirituality of the church members. Number three, domestic abuse. COVID negatively impact women more than men. Need to look into this deeper to find why. And number four, more than 70% of the church in Asia represented in this survey do not have ministry for the victims of domestic abuse. This is very sad. We need to be able to handle this in the few years to come. And finally, the church step to raise awareness of domestic abuse were neither sufficient nor effective in reducing and preventing domestic abuse. So awareness, as I said, has made us some little different reducing child abuse, but could be more in terms of reducing abuse. So in closing, I would like to invite leaders of the national alliances in Asia, leaders of churches, leaders of ministries, that we will use all the influence, all connection, all powers that God entrusted to us to significantly reduce or stop this tragedy. This is within our reach. If we work together, we can reduce this. And if we talk about a better future, brighter future, meaning better family today and better children today, raised in the better family today, will become a better leaders in the future. So it cannot wait. I think we need to take a firm action together in Asia, whatever your role is, but don't just listen and understand. Do something, and I think we can do together to change the numbers that we saw tonight. Thank you.